All right.
Yay!
And we're back. And actually, I think we're like kind of crazy right now. Let me just get that right there. All right.
You have to give me 1 second because I have to re-find us now.
I want to just
Nope.
Just a little bit.
Evo, but if I can't hear it, you should just leave it alone.
Okay. All right. I need a drink.
Okay. You should hear me talking to you right now.
What, on the pre-record?
No, on that. I'm listening to that.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I can hear us.
Okay. After these messages, we'll be right back.
So, even though our audio is better, it says it's unlisted. I have to go and fix that.
Somebody's just joined. Oh, maybe that.
Yeah, that's us.
Okay.
Oh my god. Okay. I'm just gonna give it a second to hopefully maybe some of the people that we had on with us before rejoins. It's so funny to me that like we're deciding to pivot into a new direction and then this is the day that
this happens.
And then this is the day that's like, actually go kill yourself.
Basically. What is this? This is new. What does that say? You post on YouTube on this thing. Oh.
Hi, sound is good. Praise baby Jesus. Thank you.
Lord.
Okay, so funny story. We are actually
You're actually redlining now.
It's fine.
Can you just push it back a little bit?
I'm fine. We are actually, this was going to be our last live stream. So we have decided that Shit Talk Fridays will now become a pre-recorded show with a podcast option, which means that you can listen to us on full audio. That being said, we decided to test some new audio equipment today, and we got bit in the ass.
Yes, we did. I feel like almost feel like newbies right now. Like this is the stuff that we were dealing with at the beginning.
My palms got kind of sweaty and I was just like, you know what? These are the things that happen when you go live, and like a lot of people don't understand this. As a person that works in TV and film, when these type of things happen, you just stop filming and you start all over again, and nobody knows none the wiser. But on a live show, everybody knows. But Melissa, thank you for rejoining us.
Yes.
So let's get back into our conversation for the night. So we decided to talk about love languages and why love languages are important. And the main reason for that is because we had a video on TikTok I would consider it viral. and we got a lot of comments where people were talking about the topic that we posted, which was dating with children, and a lot of people were leaving comments that were indicating that they had attempted a relationship with a person that had children, and then that relationship wind up ending because maybe one of the partners were unhappy for whatever the reason, or it didn't work out. That was a lot of the verbiage that I saw. It didn't work out. And I think you and I can speak to that particular situation directly, because we are a couple that dated, and I had children previous to our relationship. And I think that we are very privileged in the fact that we were introduced to love languages very early on in our relationship because of me.
Right.
In my work, we had been given the book of the love languages to then try to help us apply it to our employees, because I was a manager at the time. And I immediately was like, I'm going to bring this book home and I'm going to like adapt it to my own relationship to see how this can benefit us. And it was surprising that we figured out what our love languages were and why they were what they were. So Gary Chapman is the author of the Love Language book. So if you're interested, there's several love language tests that you could take, but I would just take the one that is directly connected to the book so that you're kind of getting the same facts that we got about what every love language is and like what they consist of, like, and how you can show that love to your partner. So I want you first to talk a little bit about like what your love language is and why it's your love language.
So after I took the test and finding out what my love language is, the results showed that my love language, my number one love language, was physical touch. And I can't say that I was surprised, but I was surprised on how accurate the test was.
Yeah.
That was surprising to me. And, it made me take a moment to reflect back on my life and really kind of like dig into the things that have happened to me as a child, to really label those experiences as number one love language, physical touch. Because up until that point, there wasn't a name for it. Like, I just knew that I knew what was important to me, but I didn't know that there was a test for it. I didn't know that you could put a name on it and there was a whole study behind it, and that people actually fall into these categories based on their experiences and the way that they grew up in life. So my love language ended up being physical touch, because as a young boy at the age of 5, I was separated from my parents. I was sent off to Dominican Republic to go live with my mother's mother, which was my grandmother, and my uncle and my aunt. And I spent 7 years over there. And so from age 5 to about 12 years old, I didn't have my mother or my father around. Those are pretty crucial years to develop the bond between a child and its parents.
Yeah, I would say so, especially at age 5 is when you really start to have some significant memories. Yeah. So I do have memories of my mother being very affectionate with me. My dad worked a lot. He ran multiple businesses. He was a hard worker. And I don't have a lot of memories of us, bonding physically. But I do have quite a few of my mother, but they were when I was very young. And then so we were separated. And so I spent a lot of years growing up as a kid without that physical touch that you get from your parents, that love and affection that you get from your parents. Can I ask you a question? Did you also watch other people get physical touch? Because you were living with your aunt and your uncle and your grandmother, and you weren't your aunt and your uncle's obviously like biological child, and you were a grandchild and a nephew. Did you see other people in your family giving that type of affection and that love to like maybe their own children?
I can't say that I have a lot of memories of like admiring it or something like that, or seeing it and just kind of like wishing I had it. You know, I was blessed that my uncle and my aunt and my grandmother, they gave me a pretty normal life. You know, my uncle was not a violent, loud spoken person, you know, so like it's not like I had, you know, I grew up in like this very like tense household, and then on top of that there was this lack of physical touch. I grew up a pretty happy kid. You know what I mean? Like I got to do whatever I wanted, basically, for the most part. You know, I didn't have any family members like reprimanding me, or like verbally abusive family members. Like I didn't grow up in that time, so I was very, you know, content. So it's not like I was like I had this yearning, like, oh my God, I'm in such pain as a kid. Like, where's, you know, I need love. But I did grow up without that part, that physical touch in my life. And so I can't say that early on I knew that I missed it, but I knew when I got older and I was, you know, became a teenager and, you know, a young adult, that once I started getting physical touch, you know, once I started having physical relationships with women, girls at that time when I was younger, I really like was drawn into that. You know, it really satisfied me more than I thought anything would. You know, I was very overwhelmed on how satisfied I was by having that physical contact with somebody who I cared about, you know, and so it became something that was, you know, very satisfying to me. And then as I grew older, I sought it out, you know.
Okay. But I just want to be clear that physical touch is just not about like intimacy. It's not. It actually, it's a little bit more broad in the sense of that physical touch includes just like a hug, right, or a head rub.
So for me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but as you know, one of my favorite things are head rubs.
I was getting to that.
Yes. So, you know, holding hands, you know, just being arm in arm, hugging, just being affectionate. Affection. It doesn't have to be, definitely not, doesn't have to be intimacy. Intimacy is a bonus, but, you know, there's more affection than there is intimacy, you know? And so I was very pursuant of those type of, of that type of affection.
And Stephanie, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much.
What's up, Stephanie?
That is so sweet of you.
Thank you.
One of the reasons why I think I find that so interesting is because out of the 5 love languages, and I'm going to list them right now. So there are words of affirmation, which is obviously giving your partner or showing your love partner through, you know, supportive language. Acts of service, which is showing your partner love through actually doing things for them. And that could be very broad as far as like what it is that your partner may like. There is quality time, which is spending time with your partner. And I really want to emphasize the word quality, because that doesn't mean sitting next to each other on a couch on your phones in the same space. That actually means like submersing yourself with your partner during a certain time. Physical touch, which Evil talked about, and then giving or receiving gifts is another form of a love language. So out of those 5, what I find so interesting is that yours is physical touch. And when you take the test, it gives you, it like places them in order, like your most highest priority, which for you is physical touch is your number 1. And we're really just focusing on our number 1. But why I say that it's interesting is because that is my last one. Physical touch is like my 4th one. Like
it's interesting that you say that.
It's like my second to last one. And that's why there are times where I have to remind myself that is your number 1 love language. So it's not like I'm forcing myself to do something, but there are definitely times where I have to remind myself that like I want to, like when I'm doing something in the house, maybe I want to go over and hug you, or I want to just give you a kiss, or like if we're sitting on the couch and watching a movie, I'll reach over and grab your hand, or, you know, I'll, you know, put you in a position where I can give you a head rub, because initially that's like not my first thought. I'm definitely okay with just kind of being in the same space and like being close, but not necessarily like I don't have to be touching you.
Right.
And I think that physical touch for me at certain times can be like a little like I find it a little bit of an annoyance. Like a head rub for me would like
it's overstimulating for you.
It would be completely overstimulating. And hello, Hector, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for joining us.
What's up, Hector?
I appreciate everyone that's here with us today. We actually just had some technical difficulties before, so I'm glad that people could rejoin us. So I keep saying that I find it interesting. It's because that's how beneficial love languages became for us. Because if I didn't know that, I would have almost felt like I was doing something that was annoying to me. But because I love you, I found joy in doing it because I know that it's important to you, you know? But imagine not knowing that about your partner. And like, because, you know, sometimes let's be real. I feel like there are times that you literally want your partner to like, you want them to almost figure you out. You want them to know you. You don't always want to have to be like, I want you to rub my head. I want you to hold my hand. Like you want some things just to kind of be like intuition.
Right. Or just some things to happen organically.
Correct.
You know, and I totally agree with you on that. And it's kind of strange, but yet makes sense how many people go into relationships doing things for their significant other that they want, right? It's almost like I like ice cream, so I'm going to take you out to eat ice cream.
Yeah.
And because I like ice cream, but you may hate ice cream.
Correct.
Right? And so what people end up doing a lot of the times is they do things for their significant other, but really they're doing it for themselves.
Correct.
You know, as if like, so I may take you to a fancy restaurant, you know, for all I know, you may not like public places, you know, and I may plan things for us to go places, and it turns out that these things are not of interest to you, you know. So it's important to know your spouse or your significant other and love them, right? Show them that you love them by acknowledging that you know who they are, you know their interest, you know their character, and stimulating those parts of that person. Now, getting back to the love languages for a second, I'm a little intrigued how physical touch is one of your second to last, right? And I say that because gift receiving and gifts was my last one.
That is also my last one.
Right, it was also my last one, but it was my last one because as a kid, I had everything I needed. I had gifts beyond gifts beyond gifts. I mean, I was spoiled before I went to Dominican Republic. So it was something that I grew up not really needing or valuing because I was full of it. I had a lot of it. There was no need for it for me. So the physical touch was something that I didn't have a lot of. So I kind of grew up wanting that was a void that I wanted to fill. Unconsciously, I wanted to fill it. And so I'm wondering, so it's like so in my mind I'm like, okay, she must have had a lot of physical touch when she was
I did.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Maybe I haven't.
I don't feel like you've.
Maybe I haven't expressed it in a way that you fully understand. So, as a child, my mother, the time she was present, she was very affectionate with me.
Oh, okay.
And I have carried a lot of those things over to my current children. I can give you like 2 examples. The butterfly kiss is something that my mother used to do with me. The sniffing, like the little doggy sniffing, my mother used to do that with me. The songs that I make up, my mom gave those to me. So she was very affectionate in those aspects. So I felt like I received physical touch and I felt like I was embraced. And I also had an older brother and an aunt that always showed me affection. And if they didn't, I was going to lunge on them.
Now it makes sense.
So
okay, now I understand.
And I feel like you still can see that. And it's very present.
Yes,
in
it is.
My brother and I's relationship, and me and my aunt's relationship. Obviously not my mother and I, because we no longer have a relationship. So that was something that was present in my life with the exception of my father. My father was not very affectionate. I would say almost non-existent with affection.
Okay.
But that's just who he is, and it wasn't like he did it with any of his other children and just didn't do it with me. It was just kind of like how my dad was, being an immigrant to this country. And
sure.
So, I'm glad that you asked that question though, because maybe I just haven't elaborated prior as to like why maybe I'm not like that.
Well, I mean, I think also when we learned each other's love languages, I think immediately, I want to say for the both of us, we kind of focused on the top ones because those are the ones that were most meaningful to one another. And so I aim to understand your top physical love language, no, your top love language.
Yeah. So I think maybe why it's also not really apparent that physical touch is one of my lower ones, because my second one is quality time. So I'm more than willing to like be in your space a lot. And because I'm willing to be in your space a lot, I'm willing to give you that physical touch. So it doesn't seem so far-fetched for me when it comes to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Stephanie says, my ADD plays a role with my physical touch. My hubby loves it. I use mindfulness and give physical touch with a purpose. You know, Stephanie, that's interesting that you touch on ADD. I myself was never diagnosed with ADD, but I've recently been doing some reading on it. And I used to joke about having ADD when I was a child because of my inability to be able to do certain things. And it's come to my attention that it's possible that like I have like a slight touch of it because of some of the habits that I have, like a sensitivity to certain light. I don't like overstimulation. When I go into certain places, if it's too loud or too noisy, if there's a lot of sounds going on, I get like anxiety.
Or if somebody says a trigger word for you, your brain goes off into a different direction.
So, but I could totally see how that could be part of you. But I think it's amazing that you say that you do physical touch with a purpose. And then Hector says, good communication and getting to know your partner is always key to a relationship. And that's what we were saying at the beginning, is that if you are in a relationship with someone, you always want to strive for that relationship to be healthy.
Right.
And when you're striving to be healthy, I think about it almost like in a fitness aspect. There are going to be times that it's really hard because maybe you're trying to have a breakthrough, or maybe you're trying something new and it's uncomfortable. Or things become boring.
Right.
You know, there's so many different aspects of becoming healthy because you constantly have to evolve. And I feel like in a relationship that can wind you up in a position where you become almost bored with your partner because you start to become comfortable and you start to kind of do the same things because you are not evolving constantly with your partner. And you said it earlier that one of the reasons that could happen is because, you know, we get stuck with responsibilities. You know, we have to work, we have to pay bills, we have to take care of our kids, we have to fucking mow the lawn, we have to walk the dog. And you're doing all of these things, and it's just like your partner then becomes your roommate.
Right. So, Hector, we had you weren't in on the first part of the live where we were having technical difficulties, but we touched on a video that we posted on TikTok that was about dating people with children, and a lot of there was many comments of people saying that they gave dating with a person with children a chance, and it worked out for a while, but then for many different reasons it ended up failing. And so some of the reasons were that, you know, the one person spent too much time with the kids, or the one person didn't find the other one attractive after a time, and all of them led to what appeared to me was that a disconnect between the two couples. And so it became apparent to me that many people go into relationships and raising children and spend many years together and potentially don't even know each other's love languages.
Yeah.
And I was saying that to these people, that it is very important when choosing to raise children with someone to always maintain the initial relationship, which is with you and your partner, throughout the journey of you raising the children.
Yeah.
Because in a perfect world, what happens is the kids grow up and they move out and they live their own lives, and what's left is the two original people who created the relationship to begin with. And if you haven't maintained a healthy relationship along the way, then what you have is two people who almost don't know each other, you know. And so how are you supposed to go on to live happily ever after that? So being in tune with each other along the way, taking time to really understand each other as one another evolves throughout the way, growing with each other, it's got to be like priority number one.
Yeah. You know, again, I just want to say that I feel like we were very privileged to find love languages early on.
Yeah.
Because like when I tell you, I revert back to that so much. So I encourage anyone who hasn't done the love language test to do so. Because I feel like we found the love languages about 5 years into our relationship. So see, we were like still really early on. Because, you know, at this point now, we've been together like 16 years. I've known you for 20. So we found it what I would consider still very early on in our relationship. We hadn't had our daughter yet. You know, I had my two boys. And one of the reasons why it was so influential in our relationship is because when we found out like what your number one was and my number one was, and mine is acts of service, it became so apparent to me why I functioned the way that I functioned when it came to us in our relationship. In the beginning of Evo and I's relationship, I was very adamant about being like a do-it-all person. Like, I was gonna take care of the kids, I was gonna work, I was gonna fucking clean the house, I was gonna change my tire, I was gonna do my makeup, I was gonna do my own hair, and what I was gonna do is I was gonna fucking explode. And the reason why I was like that is because if we talk a little bit about my childhood, acts of service was something that I started to have to do very early on, but I had to do it for myself. So growing up, because I came from a household where there was drug abuse, there was neglect, and at one time I then was removed from my house and had to go live with another family member because of the drug abuse in my family, I had to figure out how to do things for myself very early on, because before child services came into the picture, I was being left home alone a lot by myself. And then later on, I was then being left home alone with a younger brother that I had to care for. So I had to figure out how to do a lot of things on my own, like cooking, cleaning, you know, getting myself to school, doing my own homework. And I then really tried to do these things exceptionally well, because I then didn't want anyone to know what was happening in my home, because I lived in such fear of someone finding out what was happening in my house, you know, the drug abuse and the neglect and all these other things. And then after being taken away and then being brought back, you know, there was like a little honeymoon stage where things were kind of good, and then things just went right back to the way that they were. And I was living in that same environment, but now I'm a little bit older. So now I'm even doing things even for myself. So like now I'm like literally taking care of myself financially. I'm taking care of myself, feeding myself. I would say 90% of the time. So 10% of the time, maybe my parents were around. If you know, and what I mean by around was they were there, but they necessarily weren't present. So doing things for myself in a way where I always felt like I had to excel at it just became part of who I was.
Right. And I mean, it became clear that there was a void in your life of services that should have naturally been provided to you that weren't there. And so,
and you know what I think is even more interesting about that whole dynamic about acts of service is that I even would pass that over or on to my partner. So I always felt like I needed to do for my partner in certain ways. So like when you and I first started dating, you know, the situation was very different than what it is now.
Yeah, well.
So I felt like I needed to be there for you in a way where like maybe people didn't know really what was going on. Even though like my close friends knew, but I just did these things because that's just like who I was as a person. And as our relationship evolved and continued, I found you really wanting to be that person for me. And it was so hard for me to fucking accept. But once I understood that it was my love language, I was like, all right, I kind of let this guy like do things for me. And it may not be, he may not make my eggs the way that I like them, but I have to let him do this because this is how I want to be shown love. So if I'm not letting him do it,
right.
I'm not really opening up to you. And I feel like in those cases, that is why there are times in a relationship, a person will say he or she does not know who I am. Because it happens on either end. Either the person is not truly opening up to their partner, or the partner is not really taking the time to get to know their partner, or vice versa. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, that falls right back into people just getting really busy, dealing with other priorities in life where they stop focusing on each other. I think that's a huge problem in relationships when you start adding kids and houses and other responsibilities into the relationship, that those priorities take over. And what used to be a number one priority is no longer number one, and then all of a sudden you're this gap all of a sudden starts growing between two people that were once very close.
Yeah. I think for me, for acts of service, I acknowledge it every time now. Whether I may not even at that moment say it to you, in my mind, I'm just like, he did that for me. And I'm so appreciative of that. And acts of service can be something as small as, like what you did the other day, washing my car for me. Because you know that I'm not going to fucking do that shit. And it's not that I neglect my car, ladies and gentlemen. Jeanna, once upon a time, was all about that shit. But I had an experience in my life that taught me that car ain't worth shit. But my husband, on the other hand, does not want to see my vehicle like that. But am I so appreciative and so grateful that, because like I called you and I was like, thank you so much for washing the car. She looks so pretty. Because the shit look cute as hell. So I'm so, but like, I felt loved at that moment.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that you're in the stage of your life that you'll wash your car if you happen to be driving by a car wash, but you're not going to go out of your way to go do it. No. You know what I mean? And like, there has to be nobody in the car wash. I have to be able to pull in, pull out, and just like get the fuck out of there. And so me, on the other hand, I will take time out of my day to go and wash my car. And if there's a line, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to wait for it. Then I'm going to come home. And when I come home, I'm going to really clean it up and, do all the little finishing touches that I like to do to really make it the way that I like to see it. So, when you were about to go somewhere and I was looking at your car and I'm like, no, she can't go out like
Maybe
that.
that's why you like detailing cars so much, because physical touch is your number one language. So you like to like really like put it in there.
I don't like the work. I really don't. I like the end result. I like the end result, and I like the reaction that I get from my customers.
Yeah.
When they give me something that.
Come on, that's so funny to me.
All right, says we're back up.
Oh my God! So, ladies and gentlemen, you will laugh at what just happened. So our cat, she's down here, and she likes to make her appearance on the live a lot. She actually just ran through our cords and ripped out our Ethernet.
Yo,
sorry, I just have to fucking
this
laugh
stream
at that.
is throwing everything at us but the kitchen sink right now.
And I just want to say, if this is not a sign for us to move on to the next journey in our show, I don't know what the fuck is. So I'll just say here, this is actually going to be our last live stream. We are now going to be moving to full podcasting, where you could download or stream us on audio. I'm not exactly sure what platform just yet, but it will be audio, and there still will be pre-recorded videos of our show, so you could still watch us on YouTube. We'll have both of those avenues, but we're just moving away from live streaming. And I think it's so funny because we have not had a fucking problem with live streaming in, like, I don't know, 20 shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And today it's a fucking problem. It's fine. So going back to like just understanding a relationship and why understanding your partner is so important, because you and I were talking about what can be considered the silent relationship killer. And again, you and I learned this early on, and it's like these nonverbal issues.
Right.
It's when you have a problem with your partner, whether it be their behavior, something, how they talk to you. It could be, emotionally, it could be verbally, it could be physically. There could be so many different reasons of why then you create this nonverbal issue with your partner. And what I mean by nonverbal is that you are not communicating to your partner that there is something not happening right between you and them. And then you walk around with like a fucking grudge, or like a chip on your shoulder. And I think sometimes we fault our partners for like just not knowing what's wrong with us. And there's like a pride thing that happens there, where you're so prideful, or there's so much ego in you that you are not willing to tell your partner that, like, the other night when we were making love, I really didn't like that you did X, Y, Z. Or the other day when, I was out with the kids and I came home and you didn't take out the trash. Like, you become so angry at certain aspects towards your partner that you then refrain from telling them about it.
Right.
And then you're just walking around with like a chip on your shoulder, and your partner is potentially clueless. And this can like silently just like kill your relationship.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that nonverbal issues, they really kind of go outside of relationships. They kind of just go across anything that happens to you in life. I mean, I think that I feel like that when somebody has an issue with something, one thing that people tend to do is they go talk to their best friend about it, and you go vent and you let it out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But if you're the type of person that you have these experiences and you're constantly dealing with things that bother you, and you don't speak about them, then what ends up happening is that they become part of who you are as a character. Mm-hmm. They change you. They make you disgruntled, and you walk around, always kind of just really sensitive to these issues. Why? Yeah. Because they're internalized. And so when you speak about them, you release them. I like to think about these verbal issues as, here's an analogy. You have a glass of wine here, right? And this glass of wine is, as far as weight goes, it weighs nothing. Mm-hmm. But if I hold this glass of wine for a week, a month, a year, this glass of wine is going to break the arm right off my shoulder at some point. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so then sometimes you just have to put the glass down. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so when it comes to issues that you have with your partner, internalizing them and holding them for a long period of time will break you down as a person. And sometimes you have to just release it. Yeah. Put it down. And one way that you do that is not only by releasing it, put it down and putting it on the table, but talking it out with the person that you have the issue with, so that they understand you better, and that thing no longer becomes an issue between you two people. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say, like, you have to talk it out. I think that is easier said than done. Absolutely. Because there can be a lot of emotions that have been built up, and Jeanna said it perfectly. Silence is worse than talking, and I would 1000% agree with that. It's easier said than done in the aspect of when you have all these built up emotions, the way that it comes out is always not going to be perfect. But I guess the best piece of advice I can give towards that is something that I more recently learned from a book that I read. And it talks about no matter what you do in life, you are always responsible for your feelings. Even though there are times that you hear a person say something to the effect of, he or she made me angry. Right? Mm-hmm. But in actuality, that person may have said something that angered you. Mm-hmm. Now, you are now in control of how you respond to that person's comment. So then you are always in control. And that became such an aha moment for me, because I can't tell you how many times I have to catch myself when you say something to me that I know angers me, but it's not really you that got me angry. It's I'm now angry because of what you said, and it's because how I'm internalizing what you said. So like I'm in control of that at the end. And I think it's so hard for a person to understand that, because something someone may say could potentially be very hurtful. But again, I think that comes with like a lot of self-awareness.
Absolutely. And
that is another thing that is really hard to like acquire, because self-awareness is a practice. It's just like you just don't wake up and you're self-aware. It's kind of like common sense. Like as much as we think that everyone should have it and everyone should be self-aware, not everyone is. I think a lot of people just walk around life thinking that they're a good person, but that doesn't mean that they're self-aware. They're just doing things that they think are good, but that doesn't mean that they really know who they are, right, or like what is best for them. So like, the reason why I say it's easier said than done is because I know that you and I, for a long time, I felt like we kind of coasted. And then like we hit a patch where I was just like, I could fucking kill this guy right now. Agreed. And nothing that you said, like my brain always like scrambled that shit up. And I was just like, I was on attack mode. And it took a lot of like wrangling of my own feelings in order to like get that shit under control. And you and I also went to therapy, and I had a lot of aha moments with the therapist, because she helped me understand like where a lot of like those things were coming from. So now, even though we still argue, and there's times that like I'm not in control, like the driver's got, I'm in the back seat and the driver's just going, but then there are times where I just like I hit the brakes and I'm like, hang on a second, I need to like get control of what I'm feeling right now, and then I'm going to move forward. And sometimes that just takes for us to step away and then come back to it. But at no time am I willing to be in a situation with you where I don't like what's happening and I just bury that shit. Because what I will tell you is that when you bury something or you keep silent about it, that shit is going to erupt one day on you.
You might as well have just swallowed a bomb.
Yo, that is a perfect comparison.
Because that's exactly what you did.
Right? Like you just took the fucking pin out, boop,
and you swallowed a bomb, and one day that shit is going to erupt out of you.
And then Stephanie says, emotional maturity is a skill, learning daily. I would agree. And by the way, Stephanie, earlier you said you will not miss watching us. We will still upload video on YouTube. You can still watch us. You can still comment.
It just won't be live.
Yeah, and you will also have the freedom to listen to us whenever you want.
Yes, it's going to be pre-recorded, still loaded every Friday.
Yeah.
But along with the
audio, the option to download the audio. So like if you get in your car, if you're commuting somewhere, you're on a plane, you could listen to us, and even if you don't have Wi-Fi, if you download the episode prior. Yeah,
we think that it'll be.
I think it'd be more beneficial for our viewers / listeners.
So for people to be able to listen to us through audio rather than to having to sit and watch our stream on YouTube.
Yeah, because YouTube is really smart. You break out of their app, audio's gone.
Audio's gone. So they want you to watch because they want you to watch the ads.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yes, they do.
So one of the other things that you and I talked about as far as a relationship silent killer is becoming comfortable with your partner, and how comfortability can lead to not continuously dating your partner.
Right.
And finding ways to like reignite things. And I feel like I can speak to that directly, because there were times that like you and I, we got really like in the rut of like kids, work, home, like this, that. And then we would go somewhere and we would like eject from that portion of our life. Yeah. And we would, I have distinctly one memory when we went to the Full Moon Festival, I think it was, in Governor's Island. And I remember we had not gone to an event like that in quite a while, because we had our daughter. So maybe she was like 2 or 3 years old at that time. We had really not done anything like that in a really long time. And when I tell you, we had the best fucking time.
Yeah, we did. Because we kind of like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we we kind of were able to do something that we enjoyed doing prior to our daughter, and we were actually kind of able to get back to the basics.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and it felt like old times, but it felt like new times in the same aspect. And at that time, we also got to see a DJ that like we really admired.
Yeah, we did.
And it was just like perfect weather. There was a sunset. It was literally like I felt like it was like a first date after so many years of like us like being on a fucking grind.
And we went there in the day, and we were there all the way through sunset into the night.
Yeah, it was great.
And so that was really good. We had a good time.
Yeah, so like I remember I have that memory very vivid in my mind of a time that like we went back to us.
Yeah.
After like, and again, I don't want to make it like, because like sometimes I feel like when you hear advice, people make it sound so simple.
It's not.
And it's not.
It's not simple. I mean, listen, for those of you who have been, really have been on stream since the beginning, the things that we're telling you about knowing each other's love language and people getting into relationships where they kind of stray away from each other because they get wrapped up in the daily responsibilities of kids and work and house and things like that, and they kind of drift apart. We're talking from experience.
Yeah,
sure. These are things that we went through. These are things that we had to work through years of trial and error and getting to know each other, and it takes a lot of work. It's not, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
But for those who stay consistent, and really are striving for the longevity of it, these things are key to getting there.
You know what I wanted to say that became apparent to me, and this is like a little like off subject, but on the last video that we posted where we talked about dating a person with children, and then a lot of people, mostly men, were like showing complete opposition to dating a woman with children, gonna take the bill for another person's kid, and that they wanted to start their own family and all this other bullshit. The divorce rate is 50%. So whether you're starting fucking fresh or you're starting with someone that already has children, the rate of success is only 50%. So let's not make it seem like just because you're meeting someone without children that your shit is going to be perfect, my guy.
Well,
and that is something that really, like, I didn't really want to get into it because, like, one of the things that I can tell you is that you're not having a real conversation with someone on TikTok. Like, through the comments, like, you have a couple of characters that you can get into it with them, but you're not really having an open and honest conversation. And what I will tell you is that I didn't want to waste my breath on a lot of these people, because I can tell you that it would have been a waste of my breath. And in the last live, I talked about my energy. I'm not going to give my time and my energy to these people that obviously are very set in their mind of what is good for them. But I really know that they have no fucking clue, because if the divorce rate is 50%, regardless if you enter into something with a person that has no children, that does not mean
you have the same odds.
Yeah, you have the same fucking odds. But fine, do you?
Well, so I mean, I let me touch on that for a second. So I did actually have conversations with some of these people, and we went back and forth a bit, and what I got from that was that,
and I love you for that, because that would,
well, you know me, I'm always willing to to go into deep conversations with someone just to kind of see where things are, how deep can the rabbit hole go. But what I did get from these conversations were that people were more they were more, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. So people were more concerned about the complexity of it. Right? They saw it as something that came with issues, quote unquote, right? Dealing with, someone else's child, that child not being yours, and kind of having to figure out where you fit in that whole, that whole dynamic of a person and their child, and then where do you fit in the dynamic of the person and their child and the parent, the separated parent of that child. It's not for everybody. But what I did kind of like enlighten these people with was that, I felt that it was sad that a child and another person would stand in the way of someone finding true love. And what I said to these people was that, my guy, I will not let anything stand in the way of me finding true love, especially not a child. If I find a woman who has a child and I like that woman and I feel like she has the potential to be someone that I can spend the rest of my life with, I'm going to love her unconditionally and her child. And I'm going to find out where I fit in that whole relationship. But I have saddened and heartbroken to really, really find out that a child will steer someone away from finding true love in life.
And a child's so innocent.
And a child is so innocent. You know what I mean? Like,
in that whole dynamic.
Yeah. You're letting something that's innocent and has nothing to do with you personally stand in the way of you potentially finding something that could make you happy for the rest of your life. And so one of the points that I was addressing in another part of our stream was that, if you find a woman, in my case, a woman who is not about playing games and very serious, guys who match up with women like that, and they're serious about being good to the woman, usually end up going on and living a very happy life. Yeah. So it was a little depressing to see that. But then when I had those conversations with those people, they kind of like, gave me like a newfound respect on what I was saying, and even still disagreed with, my point of view, respected what I was saying in a new light,
There's so much I could say about so many of those comments. People were saying things like, the type of man that wants to be in that type of situation, dating a woman with children, is a simp or like a beta. And I could give so many examples of men that are uber masculine that have entered into relationships with a woman that has children previous to their relationship, and they will shit on a lot of these men in these comments when it comes to masculinity. And one of my primary examples is what I consider, I would say, an idol as far as podcasting, is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's current wife had a child previous to their relationship, who he then went on to legally adopt. And when he speaks of his children, he will say, all of my daughters. And when we want to talk about a man being masculine and being an alpha, I would think that in those type of men's eyes, he's the epitome of that. And I have never once heard that man frown upon dating women with children.
Right.
Or having a woman having a child previous to your relationship. I will say, though, that the daughter that he ended up adopting, her father did pass away. But that still does not mean that child, even though he adopted it, that's still not his biological child. So he's still entering into something where that child is very aware that you are not my biological father. So that holds a whole nother, like dynamic of potential issues. But he still went into that. And still, that is his whole family. To me, it says a lot about a person when they are immediately, especially like a really grown man. And what I mean by a grown man, like a man maybe in like his 30s and 40s, I can understand a young man being like a little bit on the defense about that, because maybe they're still trying to figure themselves out as a person and they're not really sure what they're capable of yet. But a man who is, well off, a man who is, and when I say well off, I mean like in his career and his education, and is like still finding himself to be like, nah, fam, that ain't for me.
Yeah. You know what's funny?
This is a lot about you than them.
You know what's funny about that, right? Is a lot of these guys, they'll be like, oh, never date a woman with kids because blah blah blah. It's complicated and this like that, right? But these are the guys that might go out to a club and let some chick wrap her lips around his cock. Right, first night he met her, right, and not worry about any of those complications that might come with that,
for sure.
But it's going to worry about the complications that might come with a relationship because a woman had a child and there might be, the parent involved in some way or another. They can't deal with that complexity, right?
I think that has a lot, like I said, it has a lot to do with more than them than it does that person, because if you think about it, when you said that initially is more about that person getting their own gratification. Yeah. So I think a lot of these people are not they're looking to be gratified by that person that they're with, and they know that if that person has a child, that they're not going to get that instant gratification from that person at every single moment of the day.
Yeah. Well.
And if you're looking for a person to make you feel good about yourself, if you're looking for that person to put you first, because I will tell you this, with or without children, no man in a relationship comes first. I'm sorry, I come first. I value my husband. I respect my husband. I love my husband. And I'm always there for him. But when I cannot put his feelings before me. Like, I have to be good with myself.
Yep.
And happy with myself and love myself and make sure I'm taking care of myself before I can put you in any position in my life. And if you're looking for a person to put you above them, that kind of like makes me scratch my head a little bit, because I think about that, like, so you're expecting a person that has a life just like you to put your life before what? I feel like the only time that should really happen is when you become a parent, because you're responsible for that person. Like, they're a small human being.
Right.
But to say that, like, you put another adult's thoughts and feelings and like responsibilities before your own, I find that very confusing, because then I feel like then you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to lose who the fuck you are.
You know, some people are just lost to begin with, you know, and that
is the fucking truth.
Yeah. So some people are lost to begin with and don't know how to value themselves, so that when they meet someone that they actually value, they put all the energy that they do have to value into that person, because now all of a sudden there's purpose to the value that they have within that they don't know how to instill within themselves, you know. So that's unfortunate, you know, but I would like to think that in a perfect world, those people eventually, you know, they sort out their emotions and realize that, you know, a lot of that energy is wasted, and eventually start to redirect that energy to themselves.
And that's why I told you that self-awareness is a skill that needs to be practiced, because
Absolutely.
that goes back to being self-aware. How do you understand your own emotions? How do you understand what makes you happy, what you dislike, what you love, without being self-aware? And the reason why, like, I kind of harp on that shit is because when I tell you that I've read a good amount of books in the past couple of years that have really opened my eyes to really understanding who you are. And the reason why I put so much emphasis on it is because for a long time I was living my life in survival mode.
Yeah, you were.
And when you live like that, you're constantly like in this fight or flight, where I wasn't really almost like living in the moment. I was just like living to like for the next day, you know. I was just like, okay, I just gotta make it to tomorrow, and then I'll be okay, and then after tomorrow I figure out the next day. I wasn't really like absorbing what was happening for me at the current moment in my life, and that was really fucking with me, and I didn't understand that until like life like fucking slowed down for me. You know what it almost reminds me of? Like, the best way, like with imagery I can explain it is, do you remember in The Matrix where Neo is in the car and like he's driving really slow and like everything is just passing him by really quick, and Morpheus is talking to him, and it's the first time that after Neo being unplugged, he gets put back into the Matrix, and he's just watching everything like, wow, fuck, that was me.
Right.
I was one of those people that was just like, and like he was watching what he thought was life in slow motion, but now his eyes were open.
Right.
And like, that's how I feel like I live now. I feel like my eyes are wide open, and like I like look at how I used to be in slow motion.
You've had an awakening.
Yeah. I've become unplugged. Thank God. And I almost want to credit the pandemic to that a little bit, because it helped me like really dive into that, because I was like really able to slow down. I was already on that journey, but like the pandemic put the brakes on that shit. The pandemic was like, you have nothing but time right now.
You know, it's funny like that, what the pandemic did to people, because it literally did one of two things, right?
Yeah.
People erupted into like something bigger and different than who they were, and other people just fucking collapsed.
Yeah.
You know, they were lost, because all of a sudden they got taken out of that everyday rat race that they were in, and then all of a sudden they didn't know what to do with themselves and fell into like a bunch of just, chaos. And other people couldn't wait to get out of that and were waiting for that break. And when it broke, they fucking took off.
You know what I find so crazy about that is that I feel so fortunate. And I say fortunate, we had built our life to the certain point that it was when the pandemic happened, that like when it slowed down, I was so okay with that. But God knows, if that would have happened 4 years earlier, when I was in that different world,
man, I don't even want to know.
I think I would have been one of those people that collapsed.
Yeah.
Because I would have known nothing else. Because it would have came to a screeching halt.
You would have been blindsided by it.
Because things would have not have happened on my terms. World like took over at that point.
And I think that's what caught a lot of people off guard.
Yes. And I understand that a lot of people just credit the pandemic to like, yo, I survived that shit, so like fuck it. But I think what's happening now is that some people are looking back at the pandemic and going, fuck, I had such valuable time and I like kind of squandered it.
Yep.
And like, I feel for those people because I know what that feels like. I know what that feels like to look back and be like, oh, like I had that time to like really like take myself from A to B and I didn't. I like got caught between the middle and I didn't go anywhere. Like I didn't reflect on A and I didn't move forward to B, and I'm like in this, what do they call it? Like I'm like in this purgatory state. And then unfortunately a lot of people just had to go back to what they were doing before, and then they realized like, fuck, maybe I like really hated this to begin with.
Well, hopefully, that those people, they reflect back on those moments and they're able to learn from it. I feel like people go through different chapters in their lives, and when the pandemic hit, people were ready for that chapter in their life. Whatever was leading up to that moment, the pandemic played perfectly.
And you know what that was for me? I got to finish The Office.
Exactly. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yo, you don't know how many times I came home from work. I was stuck on season 1 for like a fucking year. Season 1 of The Office, I would come home from work. I would come home from like working an 8-hour, 10-hour day of work, cook dinner, do whatever the fuck we had to do in the house. And then I would get in bed and I would put on an episode of The Office. And I swear to God, I was like on season 1 for a fucking year. I would just keep playing because I would fall asleep. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, yo, black guy.
Scranton, here we come.
Yo, Scranton, PA, Michael Scott, I'm ready. And when I tell you, I would be texting my friend, a good friend of mine who I'm actually going to see tomorrow, which I'm pretty excited about. I would be texting her. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm on episode yada yada blah blah. And I can't believe this just happened. And she would be like, you dumb bitch. How the fuck is that you're just seeing this shit now? I was like, do you not understand how busy I've been able
that's 10 motherfucking seasons. That's a lot of time.
No. And then like I had another friend, my friend Jeanna on here, and she like I was able to like, she actually also finished The Office, but she was a little bit nicer about like how I would tell her things, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm on this season right now and this just happened, and my mind is blown. But at the same time, one of the things that I want to say is that like when we were talking about the silent relationship killer, something that you and I had a real issue with was working together, as far as like say for example Home Improvement.
Yeah.
And that was because
we had very different styles of working.
Correct. I'm extremely proactive. You're extremely reactive. And I also am somewhat of a control freak. So during the pandemic, because we had so much time, we obviously did things to our home. And I'll never forget us painting our basement and us really finding our fucking groove. And it had a lot to do with me just letting you do things the way that Evo does them. Because I learned that if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you're going to have to go back and fix it.
Pretty much. And I will.
And you will. And I know that about you. So then why am I going to waste my time being like, no, I shouldn't do it like that?
What's interesting is I found out what... You found out. Yes. What's interesting is that I found out what I like to do, which is learn as I go, which is where what you like to do is learn and then go.
Yeah, correct.
Correct. So when you combine those two work skills, they do not mix well together. But we found our groove.
Yeah, we did, and I would say that I still it's still a learning process for me.
Yeah,
because there's times I'm just like.
Yeah, you just need to go off and go do something.
Yes.
On your own that we'll regroup later.
But I always just don't want to walk away. There are times that like I want to instruct you so that you understand that what you're doing, it could be done in a way that it'll help you. Because I used to think the way that you're doing it is wrong.
Yeah.
But I've become an avid understanding of like subjective versus objective. And when I think that someone's doing something wrong, that is very subjective, right? Absolutely. It's wrong in my eyes. It's not wrong in their eyes. And the example that I could give right now is like today when you were making eggs, you had the top on, and like I immediately knew in my mind, I was like, oh, if he heats the top on these things, they're gonna cook too much. So I had to have a conversation real quick with myself. I was like, okay, how am I going to tell him that if he continues doing this, it's not going to cook right? Without being like, what are you doing? And I felt like I did a good job. I felt like I delivered it in a way where you're like, oh shit. I was like,
yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
I definitely left that on.
But I just want you to know is that like, I'm not looking to tell you this to be right. I'm looking for it to you to understand that like it could have been done in a way that would have been better for you.
Right. And I think that it takes someone that's open-minded enough to be able to take those things into consideration and to be able to evaluate them in a way where they're like they can even step outside of themselves for a second and say, you know what, that person has a point there. Yeah. Some people are very close-minded about the way that they do things and are not open for corrections or any input because they're very stuck in their ways. And fortunately, I'm not like that. But in most cases, I'm just the type of person like that no matter how I'm doing the job, what matters to most is how it comes out at the end. So we may have different styles. Yeah. But to me, it's like, okay, let's talk when it's all over and it's all said and done. And then we can talk about what should have been done and what shouldn't have been done. Because I feel like people may have different styles about the way that they do things, but in the end, it's like what the finished product looks like.
And I'm over here smiling because as you said that, I felt uncomfortable. You were like, I'll just figure it out as I go. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no. That makes me feel so uncomfortable. I'm like, what do you mean you just figure it out as you go?
Because you know what? I've worked with so many people and I've come to realize that a lot of them do things very differently. Mm-hmm. But in the end, they pretty much come to the same result. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned that I have to let these people work the way that they work. I'm speaking for my employees, at the shop. A lot of times I'd want to go and I want to tell them, hey, you need to do this XYZ this way, right? Because I wanted a certain result. Mm-hmm. But then I found out the hard way that if I just let them work the way that they worked, that they would give me that result. They just had their own way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And if I came in and I tried to implement my way of doing it, then I would mess up the way that they did it, and then it would end up giving me a different result anyway. So I kind of learned that the hard way. There may be, like you said, there's sometimes I can go in there and I can tweak and I can make suggestions and stuff like that for things that really aren't being done the way they should. But sometimes I just, you gotta really like kind of just let people do what they do.
Yeah, and that's so hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I am at the core of who I am, I'm looking to control the situation, and Eva's more just like, it's fine, just let it happen. I'm just like, did you just get off the phone with that person and not take their name, even though this is like a very important phone call and like you potentially have to call that person back? And
see that right there, you got a big point there. I have a bad habit of doing that, and that's something that I need to work on. And I know I need to work on because I know it's important to have that information later on. But I'm a little bit better at it now, thanks to you.
Correct. But it speaks to who you are, because you are, and I said this earlier, you are reactive, I'm proactive. Yeah. So I feel like I cross my
T's and dot your eyes.
dot my I's beforehand. Like, I don't look for someone to go back and like do that for me. But that goes back to who I am as a person, Evil. Do you not understand? Like, okay, let's talk about it. Like, we talked about love languages, acts of service. I'm so used to figuring out things way ahead of time so that I can cover all the bases.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person in the room that doesn't know what I'm talking about, because then people could potentially figure out that I was being neglected at home. So do you understand like how important that is for me?
I know this, yes.
And like when I think about it for you, you went to DR and then like you let it go, Evo. Like you let that, like the fact that you got left on an island without your mother and your father, and from a very young age you were just like, I'm going to be okay with this. That was not me. So I can see how you and I are just very just like, it's all right.
Yeah.
I'll let it happen.
Yeah.
And then it'll come around. I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
That cannot happen.
When things kind of go awry, and if they're not big problems and they kind of go awry, I'm just like, yeah, I'm okay with this.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not like that.
I'm going to make this work.
But what I will say is you've made me so much better at it.
I'm glad.
But to a point though, sometimes you're just like, are you just going to leave that there?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. You actually taught me to be okay with that. Where now, there are sometimes you're just like, excuse me, ma'am, what is your name? Because if you mess up my order, it's over for you. And Stephanie, and hello, Sonia, welcome to the stream. So Stephanie says, oh snap, we are this exact thing as we are updating our house. Oh, that's good to know. So maybe you should take the love language test, Stephanie. If you haven't already, just to kind of figure out what would be the best approach with your partner when you're updating your home. So if your partner is an affection person, if they make a mistake, you could just be like, it's okay, baby.
Yeah.
And for me, it would be Evo going to get me donuts because that's an act of service. And then I just may be fine with the fact that he did something that in my mind wasn't right. And when I think about us doing updating to the house, I just remember distinctly, like, you had this new tool that you wanted to use, and it was a painting tool. And I did not have faith in that tool whatsoever.
No, you did not.
And you were like, trust me, I'm going to do this. I'm going to paint and it's going to work. And I watched you do it. And when I tell you that I cringed every second that you did it until that paint dried. And then you went, look, it worked. And I was just like, you know what, Jeanna, you got to let this guy go. You just got to let him do what he needs to do. Because if you,
I remember this.
Because at the end of the day, if it didn't work, I wasn't repainting it. You were.
Yeah.
So like, why was I even trying to control that situation? I just wanted to control the things that I was doing, and that worked for me. And so like, that's why you painted like the larger portions. I did the smaller portions, and it worked perfectly. But like, I feel like now we have applied that to like almost every aspect of like when we do those type of projects together. I'm just like, hey, you do that. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't,
yeah,
you need to figure that out. I'm going to do this because I can control this and this will work for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that in any situation when you are working with someone, it's you have to find out where each other's strengths lie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And kind of figure out how you can combine the two so that the overall objective can be completed, you know, and where to assign those strengths so that each person can really perform to the best of their ability. And so my strength is to put me in front of a wall and tell me to plow through it and don't stop until you do, you know, and then your strength is to kind of like come back and, you know, just put all the little missing pieces together so that in the end it looks very complete.
I would actually say like my strength would probably be before you plow through the wall, I would map out like exactly how you had to plow through it, because I don't want you running into any pipes or electrical cords or anything like that. I
still might do all that, you know.
Even would just be like, there's some electrical.
Yeah, this retaining beam right here, I'm just gonna take it out. We'll put it back later. I just got to get through this wall.
Yeah, so. Eva will be like, I'll figure it out later. If I like rip out every fucking electrical cord in our house and like maybe blow through some copper piping, fuck it, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But we talked about relationship silent killers, and we talked about nonverbal, and we talked about getting comfortable. And I feel like those two go hand in hand. So like nonverbal means that like you're not communicating to your partner like what potentially may be going on between you and him or you and her, and you're walking around with this grudge, and then I feel like then that can then further you into getting comfortable, and then you're like you're not trying to exercise ways to like try to understand your partner, and then you just like fall into this fucking pit of this person doesn't know who I am. I think about one of the main reasons why people that they cite divorce, which is irreconciled differences. What?
Stephanie said it's okay. It's subjective. Well played, Stephanie. Well played.
So, wait, what did I just say? I said, you threw me off.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
It's okay. Yeah. It's fine. You fall in, like, so I was saying, like, you fall into the pit of despair of, like, not, shit, Evo, you totally threw me off my thing.
Sorry.
It's okay. Do you remember what I was saying?
You kind of, like, were touching on, like, the things that we talked about throughout the live, and then you were moving on to something that wasn't quite in the, I feel like there was just something that you just brought up right now.
I don't remember.
Well, it's 9:41.
Yeah, well, it's 9:41 because we started a lot later than we usually do.
Right, but I don't feel like we went that far.
We actually officially started like at 8:27. So we need to go to 10 o'clock. So we're good. So if we want to go into our top 5 right now,
do we need to go into 10 o'clock?
Yeah. Because if we start at 8:30, we should go to 10. So it's 9:41. So we only have 20 minutes to do our top 5 right now.
Okay. So do we go to?
I mean, since you broke my concentration, you might as well.
I mean, I'm sorry. Stephanie kind of threw me off there with her little comment there. It was good.
Stephanie, it's all your fault.
All right. So
no, I'm just joking.
All right. Well, so we're going to just go ahead and start our top 5. And tonight's top 5 are red flags. Top 5 red flags when dating. Did I say that correctly? Because you're looking at me funny.
I'm looking at you funny because you look funny right now.
Do I look
you
funny?
Have to see yourself. You're like,
hold on. Do I look like Ice Cube on Friday right now? Do I look high?
No, because I just feel like you're like I don't know. Your
about,
whole vibe just changed just now.
How about now? I still look funny?
No, you're fine. I just feel like I feel like you keep looking at me for like confirmation that you're doing the right thing. It's because you threw me off, so I feel like you keep looking.
No, because like, you know how it is. Sometimes I'll say things on the live and I won't say them correctly, and you'll be looking at me like, "Bro, you didn't say that correctly."
No, I would just
say it again.
I would just.
I just felt like you had that look in your eye.
No, I would just tell you to say it again at this point.
No, okay,
yeah.
All right. Well,
and look, these are the things that I feel like on the live, like. Once we go to pre-recorded, no one's ever gonna see this.
No, never again.
No, it's fine. Right, I think we should just. I honestly think we should just like keep it like this.
Okay.
I'll do timestamps, and you can just like, cut right through it if you want.
All right. So tonight's top 5 are red flags when dating.
Zang.
So coming in at number 5, top 5 red flags when dating are signs of jealousy, controlling, and manipulation. And so what that means is that when you're dating someone, these are things that you definitely want to look out for, right? You just want to be like on, like your radar has to be on looking for these things, because these are red flags. If someone that you're dating is showing signs of jealousy, being controlling and manipulating, and when I say that, I mean in a way where they're like trying to
I think the example I gave you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
But the example that I gave you of this type of red flag you should look for is when someone's trying to guilt trip you.
Yes, they're trying to guilt trip you.
Can I give you an example of what I mean by that?
Please, yeah, do.
So if we're going to talk about a red flag being a sign of jealousy or controlling or manipulation, one of the best examples I can give is when a person, let's say you're going out with your girlfriends or you're going out with your guy friends, and just as you're about to like exit the door, they're like, yeah, go and have a good time. Go have fun with your girlfriends. And they're saying it in a way that makes you potentially feel bad about what you're about to go do. that is a form of manipulation, because they're trying to make you feel like what you're doing, even though there's no harm, no foul in what you're doing,
they're trying to guilt trip you.
They're trying to guilt you into thinking that your actions are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like a form of manipulation.
And that you're kind of making them feel uncomfortable, therefore making you want to like please them.
Exactly.
And pacify them.
Correct.
You know, so.
And that is them trying to control the situation. Yes. And that comes from a form of jealousy.
Absolutely.
Where they maybe, I don't know, in the past, maybe they had a relationship where maybe they were free about that. And then their partner went off and did something that they found out about. And now they're they're a jealous person. And they're like rolling that shit onto you.
Yeah, it's someone passing their insecurities onto you.
Correct.
You know, and so that's a huge red flag. Because very important that, you know, a person becomes very secure in themselves and their own issues so that they don't pass them on to the person that they're dating.
Which is also easier said than done.
Very easier said than done. Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you this. Keep going. It will always go back to self-awareness. To being self-aware is so crazy. One of the things I want to say about being self-aware really quick, and then we'll move on to number 4, is if you're ever interested about like that whole aspect about self-awareness, I would read about how Buddha became Buddha and about how Buddhism became as a whole, because it is 100% rooted in self-awareness. And that's all I gotta say about that.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Coming in.
You just sounded like a teacher.
Yeah, well, I sound like a
in like kindergarten. Okay, John, thanks for sharing. We're gonna keep reading this book right now. I hate you.
Sorry.
It's okay, it's fine.
Coming in at number 5, top 5 red flags that you want to look out for when dating. The person that you're dating does not want to introduce you to their family and friends.
I knew you were gonna say that.
That's just the way I got it written down here.
I just deleted that because I told you to.
Nope, it's still here. I see it.
Nope, it's gone.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right.
Say that again for me.
Top 5 red flags that you want to look out for when dating a person is that they do not want to introduce you to their family.
Moreover, their parents or close family. And the reason why I told you to exclude friends is because we specifically talked about why that is not the case.
I cannot confirm or deny that we actually had that conversation. Let the record state.
What is the name of that person that's like in the court that like
the
takes
stenographer? Yeah.
I think from now on when we like talk about the live prior.
No, we don't.
We need a stenographer.
We don't need a stenographer.
And I'm literally going
to turn it live
to he or she and go, tell me what he said.
Roll the tape. So
but why is this a red flag, Evo? Wait. So I want you to tell me why that a person not introducing you to their parents or their family is a red flag, and I'm going to tell you why not introducing to your friends, the reason why I excluded friends as part of that.
Well, so if you're dating someone and for whatever reason you've come to the point where you're kind of interested in meeting their parents or meeting their family, and you're probably suggesting or maybe wondering why they're not maybe inviting you to family gatherings that may be going on, or they haven't brought up the fact that they haven't suggested having you meet their parents or any of their family members,
or like you have maybe not been able to meet up with them because they're going to family functions and they're not asking you to come along.
Yes, that may be a red flag. And the reason that may be a red flag is because they may not have any plans to be with you in the long term. And if they're actively dodging you meeting their family members and you're noticing that is a red flag and a half that you are not a serious situation. Even though you may think that you are, you might want to reconsider and reevaluate the situation.
I think even further, if you are potentially prompting, hey, I want you to meet my mom and my dad, and they're like, nah, I'm good.
Or they start just giving you excuses why I can't. I'm busy that day. I actually have something going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think that that's a red flag. And I'm going to tell you why I excluded the friend portion of that.
Yeah. Please let us know why. Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Because I want to say 95% of the time, if you are casually dating a person, woman or man, your friends are co-signing your bullshit. So if you say to your friend, and I'm speaking from experience, where I have dated a guy casually that I had no intention on like dating him past just casual. My friends knew all about that and a bag of chips.
Is this the skit that Kevin Hart was talking about?
No, Kevin Hart was talking about you being a person being a liar, and then like that person.
Yeah,
like,
but he says my bullshit is your bullshit.
Okay, so then yes.
All right.
100%.
All right. If Kevin Hart agrees, then I agree.
And I will say this. The reason why I think that's like your friends are, I feel like sometimes your friends are the people that are not going to judge you like your family. So that's why you're more inclined to tell them about your bullshit. So that being said, if you are dating someone casually and you have no intention on dating them seriously or like ever having them meet your parents, and you're just like maybe looking to fuck them, or if you're just looking to like just have fun with them, your girlfriends or your guy friends, they know about that shit. And like, I know that you know that to be true.
Doctor, I concur.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I have been in a situation where I was dating a guy casually, or we were just, you know, having like more of like a friends with benefits situation. Whatever the case was, my girlfriends knew, and they knew what was up. That person was never going to meet my mom. That person was never going to meet my dad. And that's just what it was. And they co-sign my bullshit. They would be nice to that person. Yuck, yuck, chuck, chuck. Have a good time. Soon as they left, fuck that person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of people on this live that can concur with that.
Yeah, but like not even in a bad way. Just like,
yeah.
And the reason why I say not even in a bad way, because when I was casually dating, all of the people that I casually dated, they knew that I was casually dating them, with you being the exception. And I say that you were the exception was because I went into our situation casually, and then I developed feelings that I didn't think I was going to. But every other person, especially after you, was just like, I want to date you casually, and that is it. So like my friends knew about that. Mm-hmm. So like there was nothing to hide about. So if I didn't introduce you to my family, like you kind of knew that too. But there are some situations where that's not the case, where the person is not being open and honest about dating you casually.
Right.
They're leading you on. So that's why I consider not introducing to family or parents and like close family a red flag.
That's the red
Friends,
flag.
not so much.
Okay. I hear what you're saying.
I'm going to fight you for that though later, Evo.
So number 3. I don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Coming in at number 3 of the top 5 red flags to look out for when dating someone is...
The top what?
Coming in at number 3 of the top 5 red flags when dating someone is keeping old intimate photos of your significant other when the person that you're dating maybe is suggesting that you should discard them.
Yeah. And I think even like continuing to follow them on social media, or like keeping old text messages, anything like in that facet that you don't want to discard when you're like potentially in a new relationship. That's a red flag to me. I feel like you're trying to hold on to something. I mean, like, how do you feel about that?
You know, it kind of depends, right? So if I've been dating somebody for quite some time, and like we're kind of going through some things, and we come across some old photos of an ex and things like that. If they're like personal, intimate photos of just you and that person, if we're gonna be serious, I kind of feel like that, you know, that you should close that chapter in your life and focus on the chapter that you're currently living now.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that you would agree with me on that and kind of close that chapter and move on. But if you're gonna like kind of combat me on that and say no, you know, like blah blah blah, give me reasons why these things should still stay, or tell me yes and then lie to me.
I was gonna get right to that.
Which is probably what happens in most cases, which is, you know, the person gets pacified. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, but then they don't really get rid of it. That's a huge red flag, because there's some type of emotional attachment still there. If that person hasn't closed that chapter in their life and actually moved on, and that can become a very big issue later on in the future, should you continue to date that person.
Yeah.
So,
you know what I think is interesting in that perspective? I think a lot of times when those situations arise, the person on the opposite end, so like say for example you and I are in a relationship and I'm dating you, and I find out that you have pictures of an ex-girlfriend, or you're still communicating with an ex-girlfriend, or you know, something in that facet. I find it interesting when the person on the other end interacts with the ex to get them to stop interacting with the current boyfriend or girlfriend, instead of communicating it to their current partner. So I think about a situation between you and I where when in like the beginning times of our relationship, where you still had an ex that was communicating with you.
yes.
And you brought it to my attention, and I was just like, okay, that needs to stop. And you need to stop that, because I don't have any connection to her. I only have a connection to you. So I need for you to control that situation and end that.
Well, I think...
So wait, hold on. So when I can't tell you how many times I've seen it where the woman or the man attacks the person on the other end instead of the person that they are intertwined with. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, say for example you find out that your partner is cheating, right? He or she is cheating. And instead of you going at your partner being like, this has to stop, they reach out to the other person and they're like, how dare you? You're a home wrecker. You blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? How does that hold the actual person that you were in a relationship accountable for what's happening? So, like, if... I'm so weirded out by that. Like, why someone doesn't go directly to the source of, like that person is the gatekeeper of what's happening. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes. But I think that in this particular case that you're talking about, when it comes to like myself and who I am as a character, because I'm very comfortable with accepting situations for what they are and saying, okay, you know, this thing happened to me, and you know, and I'm gonna just accept this for the way that it is. When I would break up with a girlfriend, I would accept that's what it was, and I was very okay with becoming friends with my exes and being like, all right, it is what it is, you know, like this is my situation, and that's fine. And so in that particular situation, I was okay with, you know, that being a friendship, but you realized something that was not okay, which was like, you know, you kind of like saw that from the other end, that it didn't seem like it was reciprocated as a friendship, and you kind of saw it as like, this needs to end, right? That was,
yeah, because I felt like they were manipulating the situation.
Right, you felt like, because I think at that time, I think I was friends with two of my exes, right? And so one was, you saw as very genuine, right? But then the other one, you was like, I don't know about that one. And I was very like, I had moved on, and I was just like, oh, it is what it is, and I'm not willing to entertain anything. And I kind of had toward a blind eye to it. But it turned out that you were kind of right about the situation. And so, you know, I kind of like, you know, became aware of something that I wasn't. But I like, I just felt like that, you know, the way that you made it seem was like, that there was something going on there, and that, you know, you kind of like cut that off. That's how it kind of came across for a second.
I'm sorry, that's not what I meant at all. That was number 3. I want to just see what time it is, because I just want to. Oh, it's 1 minute to 9. Fuck. I don't care. I'm gonna ask you a question. So you said that you were very comfortable with becoming friends with your exes.
Yeah, once the relationship had ended,
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the...
I didn't ask my question yet, though.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. You said that you were very comfortable with becoming friends with your exes. So at any point in time in the past, had you become friends with your ex and then become intimate with them later on? Has that ever happened? Have you like broken off with a particular guy, a particular girl, and then you're like, okay, we're not together anymore, we're friends, and then had sex with them? Or messed around with them later on? Has that ever happened?
Not if I moved on. So, for example, let's just say I broke up with an ex-girlfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we broke up and some time had passed. And if I had moved on to another relationship and for some reason, like we got back together, maybe rekindled something, then yes, maybe. But the moment that I moved on to something else, then it was over.
I'm a little confused by that. What do you mean if you rekindle? So like...
So, all right, so
it has happened. You have gotten back intertwined with someone
I've broken up. Yes.
Hang on.
Yes.
So you have broken up with someone, moved on, but then got reintertwined with them.
Not moved on. I've broken up with someone, stayed single,
okay,
not had met someone, still had been broken up with that person. But then we said we were gonna be friends. You know, but yet I hadn't moved on to anything else, and then so within that friendship, for whatever reason, something kind of got rekindled, and because I was still open to, like, you know, if something happened, then, you know, maybe we could figure it out. So
okay, so then you really hadn't moved on.
It's not even about whether I had moved. Yeah, so yes, that's what I'm saying. So I hadn't moved on.
No, but I mean mentally, you hadn't moved on. I don't even mean with another person.
Well, yes, Yeah, until I like moved on to another person, mentally, like, there's still kind of like always the possibility, like, all right, well, if there's something there, I'm willing to try to see if we can work it out.
Really?
Yeah, if I hadn't moved on. Because you have to remember, I was very like much trying to like recreate and be serious in a relationship with someone. So if I haven't moved on to something else, if the opportunity comes to like try to, like, you know, figure out or work something out with the person that I had a lot of time invested to, I'm willing to give that another chance if it seems like that there should be another chance given. So for whatever reason, I may revisit that if I haven't moved on to another relationship already.
Okay.
But once I've moved on to another relationship, that's it. It's over.
Okay.
I don't look back.
Okay. I kind of have a lot to say about that, but I'm not gonna get.
Okay. Well.
I'm not gonna get into that.
We're gonna put a pin in that. We're gonna circle back around to that later.
We'll come back to that because the whole terminology of friend kind of fucks me up on that facet. But go ahead. So let's go on to number 2.
All right. Coming in at number 2 of the top 5 things that are red flags that you should look out for when dating is get caught lying.
I think you could speak to this perfectly.
I think that just there's no.
I mean, I can too.
There's no explanation needed for that. Like, if you are in a relationship with someone and they get caught lying.
No, you catch them lying.
Yeah, they get caught lying.
Mm-hmm.
That means you catch them lying.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. My brain heard that differently.
Okay. Go ahead. They get caught lying. That's a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, not to say that people are, you know, should be perfect or nobody, but you should automatically like jot that down, like, red flag, and not let that shit just kind of get brushed underneath the carpet. And, you know, if it turns out that they continuously get caught lying, then you've probably got a big problem on your hands. Not probably. You do have a big problem on your hands.
Yeah. The reason why I said that I feel like you could speak to that is because I feel like one of your relationships previous to me, that was like a big factor. But now that I think about it, my relationship previous to you, not right before, but like one of my more long-term ones was filled with that. And there was so many times I caught that person lying that I was just like it actually got to the point where I was just like, this is honestly like a game now. Either you think I'm fucking stupid or I'm an imbecile. Like, it was one or the other. Like, you're lying to the point now where you honestly, the things that you're doing are so obvious. I'm just wondering if you even respect me as a person anymore. And unfortunately, I was really young at the time, and unfortunately, I was kind of stuck in the situation that I was in. But that's not something that I would tolerate now. But back then, I kind of was like going through the motions because of the situation that I was in. But definitely, like, I think one of the reasons why we say get caught lying is, and the reason why that's a red flag is because, listen, sometimes a partner is gonna lie, and they have their reasons for it, and it may be for the right reasons. So, for example, if you ask your partner, "Do I look pretty in this?" Oh my God, do you really want to fucking hear the truth? Because maybe the partner doesn't necessarily like the color on you, but you like it. But you're just trying to kind of like get their vibe on it. Your partner's probably going to tell you that you look beautiful in it. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So like, they're going to lie in that facet. But I think it's more so like when they lie about things like their whereabouts, what they're doing, where they are after work.
Who they were with.
Yeah, who they were with.
Especially who they were with. If they're lying to you about who they were with, that's a big red flag.
That kind of shit. I think that kind of shit is like off the wall. And it was funny because I said you could speak to that. But as you were talking, I was like, man, I could remember a particular situation where like I came home from work one day and I was just like, where is this person? And their family was like, oh, they went to such and such place. And I was like, oh, this person is not there. They are somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And they're lying to me. And like, now I'm going to go and catch them. I catch them. And that makes me think about like when I raised our children, and I would say to them all the time, I would say to them, I go, the reason why you lie to me is because at a certain point, you potentially lied and you got away with it. So now that I encourage you to lie again, I go, and it keeps just putting a battery in your back because you keep thinking, oh shit, I got away with it that time. Maybe I could get away with it again. And it's like, it works the other way too. Like if you do something good, then you want to do something, you want to do another time, you want to be better at it. It works in both aspects. But it's not until you get caught that you're like, fuck, I shouldn't have been doing that. So that's why we say when you get caught lying. Because it's like when you get caught lying, your partner potentially, or the person you're dating, because we're talking about dating because they're not your partner at the time, they have probably done it a couple times before then. And
so, you know, one of the most important things that you can do as a person when you're in a situation where you're with a habitual liar is remove yourself from the situation. Right? And the reason I say this is because you take away all of the power that person possesses to be able to lie to you. They no longer have anyone that they can lie to.
Yeah.
Right? So you have stripped them of everything that they have, all in one act, by just removing yourself from the situation. People underestimate the power of just ejecting out of the situation rather than trying to manipulate or steer the situation or fix it or make it play in a way where you're not the victim, and so trying to like just recreate all of the actions that have happened so that it play in your favor. No. Eject.
Yo, for real.
Snatch their souls.
Yeah.
Right?
Your soul.
And it's all mine. Within your power.
Yeah. Let's move on to number one, because we're actually at like 10 minutes past 10. Number one is very personal to me.
Yes, it is. Coming in at number one of the top 5 red flags that you can encounter when dating someone is attempting to have sex without a condom.
I want you to say that number one again. It's attempting.
I don't think that one was that serious, but okay.
Okay.
Coming in at number one of the top 5 red flags that you can encounter when dating someone is attempting to have sex without a condom. If he or she does it with you, they attempt with others.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why I say this one is very personal to me, and like when I have it in parentheses, you don't necessarily have to read that part.
Oh, sorry.
That's just a notation to me. But the reason why this is very personable to me is because...
Personable? Say that again?
Personal, sorry. The reason why this is very personal to me is because as a woman, if you're casually dating and you then become intimate with a man and he attempts to have sex with you without a condom right from the beginning, the reason why that's a red flag to me is because I immediately look at that as this man has attempted to do this with several other women. And if he has attempted, at some point he has succeeded. So if he has succeeded in having unprotected sex with women in the beginnings of dating, I am now 100% on the defense because I feel like you don't value my safety as far as STDs or pregnancy. And let's be clear, when it comes to intimacy between men and women, a woman is always running the risk of pregnancy if she's not on birth control. And even if she is on birth control, she has to be like taking it to perfection or getting it administered to perfection to prevent pregnancy. So there's still like a chance. Mm-hmm. So a woman runs such a higher risk. So if you're trying to have sex with me immediately, like off the rip, without a condom, that shit is a red flag to me because that means that you try to do that with so many other people and it's vice versa. So if a woman is allowing a man to have sex with them without a condom immediately, oh my God, she's probably done that with other people. And I'm not saying that that makes her a bad person or that makes him a bad person. But is that a situation that you want to put yourself in right away without really knowing a person and making a commitment to be monogamous and lowering your risk of STDs, lowering your risk of pregnancy? Nah. And like you said in number 4, eject. Like I immediately eject. There have been situations in my life where that has happened. I have entered into a situation where I was looking to be intimate with a person and they were looking to be intimate without protection. And when I tell you I have ejected from that situation where I've just been like, hey, had a really nice time with you tonight. No, I'm going home. Goodbye. Because the fact that you thought that that was okay from the door
just tells you the type of person or the type of people that they have been surrounding themselves with, because that's something that obviously that they've became accustomed to.
I look at that very different. That tells me a lot about their mind versus the people that they're surrounding themselves with.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, that's the people who they're surrounding themselves with are the people that they're mentally connecting with. It's just who, like, you have to. So in order for you to be able to have sex with someone without a condom, like immediately, and that happen, just means that you are both on the same mental plane. And you're seeing eye to eye, right?
No, I see that very differently as a woman.
So if I'm trying to engage with you, right, without protection, and you allow me to, doesn't that kind of mean we're seeing eye to eye?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm learning something new today. What does that say?
So when you say eye to eye, you mean that we both equally are okay with having sex without protection? No. I think you and I have talked about this a lot on previous lives. There are a lot of times women were appeased to a man's ego, and they will allow a man to do things with them in hopes of the man liking them, in hopes of having some sort of longevity. That does not mean that they are looking eye to eye as far as like having sex unprotected and like they both want to do that at that exact moment.
I think it speaks to the level of ignorance that exists between the two people. That's a very ignorant thing to do. Don't you think?
And you have to elaborate on that. I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean?
I just think it's a very dumb thing to do.
Well, people do dumb things all the time.
Right.
You know?
So you have two people that are doing something stupid together, which means that in that moment they are equally stupid.
No, I'm.
All right. I think we can agree to disagree.
I'm not going to agree to disagree with you. I totally disagree with you.
Okay, but I feel like that this is very much something that we can have a difference of opinion on based on the way that we see this and really not come to an agreement. So
no, but I don't agree to disagree with you. I completely disagree with you. And as a woman,
you don't think that that's stupid for a girl or a woman to allow a man to sleep with her with no condom immediately just so that she will like him? You don't think that's dumb?
Okay, but that's not always a scenario. That's one example.
That's the scenario you gave me.
I know. Can I finish?
Sure.
That's one example I gave you.
So, and I'm speaking on that one.
I know, amongst many. That's why I disagree with you, because that you're creating your whole basis off of that one example, and I'm telling you that there's so many different examples of why that will happen. And do I think it's rooted in stupidity? No. I think that sometimes it's rooted in I think it's rooted in fear. I think it's rooted in peer pressure. It's rooted in so many different things, and I don't think you get it.
I know, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm just referencing your comment that you're saying a woman would do that to appease a man's ego.
And do I think that that's
You don't
stupid?
think that that's dumb?
No.
Okay. I beg to differ. So that's why I said I feel like that we can go back and forth on this based on our opinions on this.
I don't agree to disagree.
Okay, we disagree. We disagree. Can we agree that we disagree?
Yes. Okay.
So we're agreeing to disagree.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So that wraps up our top 5. We got through it. What the fuck was going on there for a second?
I just wanted to be 100% clear that I don't agree with you at all.
But you were denying to agree to disagree when that's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah,
we were agreeing to disagree.
I just wanted to be so clear that I 1000%
you were doing this hardcore.
I want chicken nuggets after this. No, I'm just joking.
Shit. All right. Well.
Sorry. Evo. One of the things is that I love about the dynamic that we have on the live is that you're male, I'm female. You're man, I am woman. I have such strong feelings about things as a woman.
I know you do.
And I think, and I'm not saying that you don't have the same strong feelings, but there are so many times that this is our platform. And as a woman, I'm going to use this platform to speak for women when I know sometimes women won't speak.
I know.
So there are times that I just feel like I need to lay that shit out, whether there's someone listening or nobody listening. I don't give a fuck. That's it.
2 tears in a bucket. Fuck it. Let's take it to the stage.
That actually brings us to the end of
our final live.
Our last live, Evo. Give me a high five. High five. But that doesn't mean that this is the last time that you will see Evo and I. We are now going to full podcasting, where you could download us for full audio. And you will continue to see us on YouTube. We will still continue to load up our sessions that are recorded of our podcast. So we'll still be here. You could still leave your little flagrant ass comments, because we look forward to that shit.
100%.
Yeah. We love replying to comments, especially Evo. So, actually, until next Friday.
Yes.
When we see you again, we have some other interesting topics for you. I don't know what the fuck they are. Until next Friday. Actually, peace out.